Hi everybody, my name is Nasser Majali. I am the Secretary General of the Jordan Olympic Committee. I am also heading the Jordan Esports Federation. About 2 years ago, in 2017, we as an Olympic Committee had a long discussion about something called the Indoor Asian Games. And in the Indoor Asian Games, which is organized by the Olympic Council of Asia, so it's under the Olympic movement, they said they wanted to introduce a Dota 2 tournament within the event, and they asked the Asian countries if they had any teams to compete. So we decided we wanted to build our own team and do a test during that event, and we were lucky to be the only Arab country competing with a team. طبعا Mohammed Kanakri here was one of the people who we put up in our first Jordan Esports Committee. The Jordan Esports Committee, and this is important because it's important to mention what we do. What we do is we are the umbrella organization in Jordan for esports competitions. After a couple of events had some issues in the past in Jordan, the Ministry of Interior decided it wanted a body to deal with directly when an event is to happen in Jordan, so as to be able to get all the legal work through. That committee is the Jordan Esports Committee. One of the first things we did was, and Kanakri might have been part of that experience, was our Dota 2 team that we prepared right here in the King Hussein Business Park with the help of GROW and with the help of, طبعا under the patronage of His Royal Highness Prince Umar bin Faisal. And this was the first ever official Jordanian team that went out for a championship in the past. This is actually from Turkmenistan, where the competition took place. And why I'm showing you this is what we were able to do within about 2 months' time of work. Some of the issues that we faced were monetization, how to make money out of this. Okay, not just for us, but more importantly for the athletes themselves and for the teams. A couple of issues that we have in Jordan is we don't have a lot of official funded teams. And I'm looking at you guys and I'm thinking always the issue is funding and monetization. So maybe Zawiya has solutions in Kuwait, but the solutions in Jordan still are murky at best. Events, Kanakri can tell you, and others who are doing events, usually the event entry is much less than what the event investment is. So up till now, monetization is an issue. And this is part of what our committee is here to work on within the next couple of years. We are building a plan, because we need one, to see how this could create revenue for athletes. We can mention athletes' names who have made it now, whether it's in Dota, Miracle, of course, Yapzor, Min fi Kaman, who Kanakri, who have made it out and did well. Isa Murad in CSGO. So we have athletes, we have Jordanian athletes who rank in the top echelon, let's say, of these sports, and they make money. They make good money, but they don't make it in Jordan. Okay, that's one side of the discussion we have. Now, as the Jordan Olympic Committee, this also has to be a sport. And this leads to the next part of that discussion that we've been having. Not only locally, but we've been having this discussion regionally, we've been having this discussion internationally with the International Olympic Committee, and is esports a sport? Are they, as you said, athletes? And one of the main parts of the international definition for sports by the Olympic movement and by the IOC is that there is physical exertion. So they do compete, that's part of sports. There is skill, that's part of sports. And the argument we've been making at an international level that esports is a sport because there's a lot of mental and physical exertion. And that we do require of our athletes to have a lot of physical training so that they are capable of competing at the top level. At the top level, to get that last 3-4%, you need to be up and running, not just drinking Red Bull and Mountain Dew the whole time. And that's good for the first couple of hours, and then you need to be physically fit to be able to sit for 10 and 15 hours of competition. And in how it's being worked at the international level, they need to find the healthiest way to make this happen, for it to become considered a sport. And they need to regulate. And today, as most of you would know, regulation is only done per game, practically. And that's an issue in itself for the Olympic movement. وهلا بدي أشرح لكم شوي about the Olympic movement. Why does it matter for the International Olympic Committee to look at esports as a sport and recognize it as such? Mainly it's because many countries don't care much about the financial revenue from the games, but care much more for the competitions and the value of competitions that would give back to the country. Example, medals. I'll send you to sports. Ahmed Abu Ghosh gets a gold medal at the Olympics in 2016. 60,000 new taekwondo suits are sold in Jordan. About 20 new taekwondo centers open in Jordan. What this has translated to is an increase in the base of the game, an increase in monetization, because the centers are now extremely profitable centers. The fact that there is demand enough to fill 20 new centers in Jordan in itself is a profit model for those athletes, or for those center owners and coaches. But one of the toughest arguments, and at this point I'm a member in the marketing commission of the International Olympic Committee. And this is where the biggest discussion about this is happening. The discussion of whether we should think about including esports within our program or not including esports in our program. And one of the main arguments we've been making is that one of the best positives about esports is that it does not differentiate between male and female. It does not differentiate between people with disabilities and people who are fully able, because most disabled athletes in esports will be competing equally with all other athletes. And it is one of the cheapest sports to compete in internationally, especially if you don't need to leave your couch. And within that argument, the other argument that we've been having is that we, as a smaller country as Jordan, have as many top athletes as some of the much bigger countries in the world. So this also gives an even playing field for smaller countries, because they do not need to directly invest. And most of the money comes from the developers themselves. So there is a demand by the developers to fund this, and fund this even within the Olympic movement and within the IOC, and hopefully in the future in the Olympics. How much time do I have? So that I could lead it to an end. 10 minutes? Okay, I'll use 5, and then we'll do 5 minutes of questions if we have questions. So with that being said, one of the biggest issues that the International Olympic Committee has is the game content. And I think this is controllable, زي ما كنت عم تحكي, as you were saying, Nabil. As you were saying, Nabil, it could be other games like FIFA that could be used within the Olympic movement itself, that will give attention to other games that are not within the movement. But just recognizing an esports is a sport, and then recognizing you guys as athletes is in itself a major step forward for it to be recognized. But again, this always leads back to monetization. Zawiya would have the same issue that the Jordan Olympic Committee has, that Conakry would have, that Fate would have. All of them are looking at the end of how can we monetize this. And you were giving a couple of examples that were included in technology and all of that, but that's still, it's still a limited market, and most of the people who are working in the Middle East market have found out that, I know you were asking a question about reach and marketing and getting sponsorship, what do they get in return? And it's very tough today to put an actual value on the athlete regardless of how good the athlete is. In the case of Miracle, at that time with Team Liquid, you go out to the Dota 2 World Championship and you go and compete and you get first place and you get a pot of $2.5 million لكل واحد. The government بتقول لك والله لحالي أنا راح أخذ, I'm going to get $500,000 as tax, and your team manager might get another $500,000. There's monetization, but this is a very, 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 very exceptional case with less than 0.0001% of athletes. And this is what most teams internationally are trying to bank on, and this is with developer money. But this, we're still a very, very far away from that when we come and say, what do we want to do with the majority of our athletes? And this is one of the things we are trying to work on as a committee in the Jordan Esports Committee. How to organize the sector, how to give you somewhere to be able to go to, and eventually hook you up with regional companies that are working on developing athletes. This is one of the toughest areas to work on, which is athlete development. What is the right way to develop an athlete, how to manage him and lead him to a much more profitable or sustainable career within esports, while at the same time getting the support of government for all regulations related to that. I think I want to stop there and take any questions that you have, if you have any. Go ahead. Yeah.
Is that in esports we do not differentiate between genders.
Yes.
Well, there were female teams in the past, in the last 15 years, especially in FPS games such as Counter-Strike.
Yes.
Every time they were allowed to compete with men, it didn't work out, and separate leagues had to be created for the women part in esports to survive. So is that a really argument to be making when the reality of the world that
No, I'll tell you what the argument that's being made is. In that whether or not I know about that specific case doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, women can be given the equal opportunity to compete within that. In equestrian, you could see males and females compete equally there. Okay, in some forms of team tennis, they compete equally when they're mixed teams. Within esports, they'd be given that opportunity. You cannot block a person because of gender, because anyways you do not actually know the gender. There is a million ways for you not to know the gender of the athlete that's playing against you. The thing is, developing a female athlete to be able to compete against a male athlete in itself, I don't think is an issue, and we haven't seen that as an issue today. Now, interest in the game, is it predominantly a male interest versus female interest? That's not the argument that we have here. But does that make sense to?
Like partially, because as I said, like especially women esports in Counter-Strike in Europe.
Yeah.
It's a really big thing for advertising.
Yeah.
It's been going since 2005, and I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
But for the only way how it works and how it still works to this day is that they play in separate female-only leagues. They do not clash with male.
Okay. I'll answer you from the point of view that I was talking. The argument we are making to the IOC on behalf of esports is that it is very much possible for a male to compete with a female equally within esports. I'm not saying or making a statement that men and women will be able to do so from a competitive point of view. So that is to be the proof for that will be made with time, game by game. Yeah.
Just one supporting question.
Yeah.
That is that you mentioned that there needs for the UCI to acknowledge esport, there needs to be understanding of physical fatigue.
Yeah.
And you are now directly speaking just about esports. My question is a question of chess player. Isn't that an opportunity to even put chess to this group of sports that are played mentally, mainly mentally?
We are making the same argument. So the Jordan Olympic Committee is making the same argument you're making. We are arguing for most mental sports, again, because of the same reason where you can compete in them equally amongst different groups. The one argument that's coming back from academia in the Olympic movement is it a sport? And that applies to chess as it applies to esports. Because today, within the indoor Asian Games, we did have esports and we did have chess as competitions there. But at the Olympic Games, neither are Olympic sports. Okay, last question from you. No, I'll just mix it up. No, go ahead.
It's a very unique opportunity
Go ahead.
to speak someone from the Olympic
Yeah.
is that there is already a research, especially from StarCraft in Korea,
Yeah.
that the players that play over long periods of time in their careers harm their bodies irreversibly. Isn't that something that can help you build that argument that there is a physical fatigue because these players literally damage their wrist?
That's a double-edged sword. If you use such a study saying that they're harming their body by playing the game, okay, the argument of many people in the Olympic movement would say that it is harmful because the physical effects that it's having on them would not be because of physical exertion, but rather because of lack of physical movement. So you don't want to use it. If that was an actual study that proves what you're talking about, it could be a double-edged sword. The one thing we're trying to make an argument with this is for an athlete to compete at a high level, he needs to do some form of sports and strength and conditioning for him to be able to do that. Go ahead.
So you mentioned earlier that you have a team, you made a team, right?
Yeah. We made a team at the time. It was a temporary team. Yeah.
So my question is, we in Jordan, we have special cases, such as Ahmed Al-Khali, right?
Yeah.
And Ahmed Al-Khali,
Yes.
who have achieved great things in the sports or games that they play.
Yeah.
Which shifts the focus of teams and organizations in Jordan to these games and
Yeah.
So as a League of Legends player, how can I find a team or an organization that can take me in when there isn't much focus on the game in Jordan?
Shuf, I'll tell you something about League of Legends from what I've learned within the Middle East. So the Saudis have a very big investment into League of Legends. Other Gulf countries do have that investment. I saw a bigger market for Dota 2 and for Dota 2 probably because of Barqawi. It's the same thing with Ahmed Abu Ghosh and Taekwondo. You see a shift from many other individual sports to Taekwondo because people know they could get to the Olympics there and they can compete, and we have the coaches and we have all that in there. So as a League of Legends player or any other game at this point, the one thing we've been trying to work on, but we've been slow in working on, and I'm saying that in front of Kanakri because I'm part of the slowness, is that we want to be able to create a community that you can lean on as an athlete. But we've been facing many challenges. One of the main challenges we've been facing is how to make the federation itself or the committee itself a self-sustainable federation so that we make an argument in front even of our board, of the Olympic Committee board, that this sport actually will bring in money for Jordan rather than we need to spend money on it. So we've been trying to iron that out to be able to create that platform. The one thing that we've been able to very much advance in is and this is a funny part, we've been able to discuss with the government to allow events to happen in Jordan. طبعا last year, one of the events that happened in Jordan created an issue with government where we had to, where government stopped accepting applications to do esports events, which eventually, am I at time? Yeah. So it's a step-by-step process, but soon enough I hope to have an answer to that question that you've asked. Thank you.